Hello and welcome to the third video in this series on the binomial expansion, and in this video we're going to look at the binomial expansion itself. So the use of the binomial expansion is it allows us to expand a bracket raised to a power in a much more efficient way than it would be to multiply them bracket by bracket. And if you look at the wording of this particular question, it says write in ascending powers of x the first four terms of the expansion. Because often we're not going to look at doing the entire expansion, because many of the reasons why this can be useful only requires us to have certain terms. So there is a very specific method we can use for this. And it's going to work in a very nice pattern. So to generate the first term, I'm going to be looking, if I had 8 brackets, of selecting the 3 from all 8 of the brackets, because it says write in ascending powers of x, so the lowest ascending power of x is going to be if I have no x's at all. So picking 3 from each of those brackets and multiplying them together is going to give me 3 to the power of 8. But I'm not actually going to use it as 3 to the power of 8. I'm going to write it in a slightly different format, because then it's going to match this format for all of the remaining questions. So what I'm doing is, if I'm interested in powers of x, I am looking out of 8 brackets, I'm looking at the number of combinations there are of getting 0 x's. I'm then going to put that in brackets, I'm then going to multiply that by 2x to the power of 0, because I'm selecting the 2x term 0 times, and I'm selecting the 3 term 8 times. And when I evaluate this, it's going to give me the term I'm after, which in this case is 6,561. So that's going to be the first term in this expansion. Now the second term in the expansion, this time if I'm going to have a single x, out of the 8 brackets I'm going to need to select the 2x term once and the 3 term the other 7 times. And I need to know how many different ways that can happen, and that's going to be 8c1. How many ways are there of selecting one term of 2x from 8 brackets? Now that turns out to be 8, and if we think about it, that's sensible, because you can take the 2x from either of the 8 brackets, so there's 8 possibilities. Now when I come to the next part here, so I'm looking at selecting the 2x term once and the 3 term 7 times. Now when you type this into your calculator, you cannot type the x in, so just be aware of that. And just ignore the x itself. You need to put the 2 in, but ignore the x, and then just put that on the end. So 34,992x. So the third term is going to have a very similar format. So this time I'm looking at selecting the 2x term twice. So it's 8c2 and 2x to the power of 2, which means I've got 3 in the other 6 brackets. And you'll always find that the sum of the powers in the 2 terms is always going to be equal to the number you put after the c, the number of combinations. Sorry, no, that's not true. The first one's always going to be the same as the number of combinations that you're looking for here, and the sum of them is always going to be the total number of brackets. Okay. Right, so when I type this in, again, I've got to remember that that 2 is squared. And this is going to give me 81,648 x squared, and then my final term, so 8c3, 2x cubed, 3 to the power of 5, and again, got to be careful, can't put the x in, do have to make sure I put in the 2 cubed. And that gives me 108,864 x cubed. So they're my first 4 terms, but the expansion is not just 4 separate terms. We need to show it as a summation. And it won't always be separated with addition, because if you've got a negative term, then that will obviously be a subtraction instead. But these are all positive. And that's not the full expansion. Sometimes we just put ... after it to show it continues, but we have done the first 4 terms in the expansion as was required. Okay, so here are some questions that you can have a go at. So the first set of questions are very much like what we just looked at. The second set of questions are a little bit more tricky, because you've got to then multiply your expansion by something else. So in the case of set B, A, B and C, use the binomial expansion for the 1 raised to a power, and once you've done that, then multiply it by the single term. And then here are the answers.